overall, I'm happy with the verdict because I've been saying that this is probably what's going to happen. But you're saying that if you have an alternative lifestyle, if you don't have a wife or a traditional girlfriend, if you have multiple girlfriends and you fly women out and you're having threesomes and, you know, drugs might be involved, but everyone's taking the drugs themselves and no one's being forced to take the drugs.
Right.
Because remember, the jury even asked, you know, if you ask for drugs, is that the same thing as distributing drugs? Like, is that person distributing drugs that the person asked for it? Right?
Right.
I've never heard a story of like, there's a pile of cocaine on the table and Diddy like grabs a woman's head and shoves it in the cocaine and like, take
happened.
this or else.
There was no
like,
Scarface moments.
There was no Scarface moments.
And I never saw drugs other than the weed we were smoking and the mushroom we took one time. So,
you know, I just feel like you've turned tricking into a crime, essentially. Or you've turned polygamous relationships into a crime. You've turned cuckolding into a crime. You've turned a bunch of stuff that really is just people's pleasures and preferences. Like, there's nothing wrong. You know, I remember even on the closing arguments, I think it was Brian Steele was like, oh, here's you know, exhibit 48, you know, 100 bottles of baby oil. You know, good job, fellas. Where's the crime?
Right.
Where's the crime? You know, good job.
RICO
the feds
does not want RICO.
got these pictures. This is
RICO
part,
does not
this is
mean
part
RICO,
of the trial.
so.
Where's the crime? You know, and it's like, when you look at successful men, rich men, famous men, and women, you know, as well, they fly people out because they're busy.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, but they fly people out. Now, is that trafficking or is that just dating? You know, you give, you know, a woman $1,000 to go shopping. Is that prostitution or is that giving a woman some money to go shopping?
Right.
Because you're busy and, you know, you want to treat her nice. Like a threesome. Okay, it's not, I've done threesomes, I've done foursomes, right? Nobody was forced.
Right.
You know, I would hate for someone to come back and say they were trafficked by me.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
But that's what this kind of leaves the door open for, you know?
Yeah.
It says that I feel like you can get in trouble now. You can be arrested for the fact that you did not communicate to the fullest extent in your relationship. And that does not mean that you as a man didn't communicate to your wife, because it seems in these instances that the wives or the girlfriends aren't communicating that they're not liking this situation. It doesn't mean that they didn't talk about it, because they talked about, he said what he liked in the very beginning with these women. You know, that's what the court documents said.
Right.
So I don't know. I just feel that it's a slippery slope. I mean, not communicating with your partner can now lead to sex trafficking charge against you.
Yeah.
It just, you know, where does that end and who's next?
It's crazy. And it is a who's next. You know, and it's sort of like, I think the prosecution said, as long as Cassie did not want to do one of the freak-offs, you have to convict him for sex trafficking. So she did 100 of them and she liked them, but one of which she wasn't comfortable with, that's now sex trafficking? It's like, come on. Yeah. We all have bad days. We all do things for our partners that we may not want to do at that very moment, but we do it for them.
Right.
Whether you're a man, a woman, a trans, gay, straight, a relationship is a relationship.
Yeah.
A relationship is not always a traditional relationship. And sometimes there's other people involved. And when you're dealing with certain types of people, usually they're open about letting the other person know, hey, listen, there's other people involved. You and I have something special, but I'm also seeing some other people as well.
Right.
I also have a baby mother. I got kids here. I got this person who I'm living with, but I'm also have a place over here and I could put you up or whatever else. All that to me is fine. It should not be criminalized in a federal court. Exactly. And I think we saw that today, and it just kind of bothers me. And I feel like, you know, people like Cassie who are being, who are painted as victims, I don't really feel like they're really the victim in this point, because everyone I talk to have always said, between you, Punisher, have always said Cassie was with it. Cassie seemed like she was totally into it. Daphne Joy, the two escorts I talked to, have all said that she's with it. She was totally, fine with it. Deep down inside, if someone thinks differently, I guess, but if you do something 100 times, you say one time I didn't like it, that shouldn't turn into a disaster,
right,
legally for you. And so, that's my take.
Yeah,
and I've been saying it the whole
on that
time.
we agree. We definitely agree on that. So,
well, Don, I appreciate you coming in. I feel like you really give a a glimpse into the reality of what actually happened, because the prosecution tried to paint a very, very different story.
Right.
And was Diddy physically abusive with men and women? 100%. We all saw the Cassie video. Look, my ex-assistant was there when he saw Diddy throw a laptop at his assistant because she couldn't get the Wi-Fi working,
Right.
barely missing her head. The abuse of women, like his chef, I had heard directly from someone that was there. All this stuff is true. All this abuse is true. But that's not what he was being charged with.
Correct.
This was a domestic violence case that
At
turned
best.
into a RICO and sex trafficking and prostitution, all this other stuff, without actually even focusing on sex trafficking, which was not even focusing on domestic violence, which is really the only thing that's clearly provable here.
Right.
That wasn't even a charge. That's what this really is. And it turned into something bigger because I think there was clout-chasing because it's Diddy. And I think that, a group of 5 prosecutors, all of them female, wanted to embarrass him and probably was like, we're going to fight for this fellow woman who's now $30 million richer. And, it just feels like bullying.
Yeah. I think the statute of limitations wore out for that video.
Yep.
And then the government said, well, we're going to get them for something else and let's figure out what we can get.
Right.
And what they had, I feel like, wasn't enough to really justify the charges that they dropped, but they dropped them anyway. And like I said, they ended up whittling it down until we get to really what they view, which was those 2 minor charges.
Well, Don, appreciate you coming in and being so transparent about everything. And man, wish you all the best.
Thank you. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my agency, Cox Models. Also, my girlfriend, Alana Buns. Come make sure you check us out on our OnlyFans. Mine is Don_the dealer. And yeah, looking forward to doing more out there.
That's what it is. Peace.